Well, thank you so much for staying with us. The Minister of Power, Mr. Adebayo Adelabu, has said Nigerians would enjoy uninterrupted electricity supply before the end of President Bola Tinubu's tenure in 2027. Mr. Adelabu gave the assurance during the commissioning of the Kwaru 1x15 MVA 33/11 kV injection substation in the Ikoton area of Lagos. Now, he said the federal government was taking a multi-pronged approach to address long-standing challenges in generation, transmission, and distribution. Now, the minister highlighted key achievements under the Renewed Hope agenda, including the decentralization and liberalization of the power sector through the Electricity Act 2023, which has activated 12 states' electricity market and led to development of a national integrated electricity policy after 24 years. My guest is Noelle Okwedy. She's research lead Nigerian solar power market space. Thank you so much, Noelle. It's good to see you. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Tolupe.
Yes, I think I should allow you take us through what you've seen as developments in recent times. Back and forth with regards to our supply. I'm always worried about the fact that we are still here to just even hit 5,000 megawatts. The TCN will tell you today we have the capacity to do 7,000, 8,000. The discos will tell you this is what we can receive. At the other part, we know the Genco guys are being owed, I think, about 5 trillion naira or whatever. They had a meeting with the president recently. How do we marry all of this together?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So I think what you said, the statistics paints the picture of what the industry is today. So we have an installed generation capacity of 13.6 gigawatts, transmission capacity of 8.1 gigawatts, and our peak distribution, that's the maximum we've ever distributed or supplied to Nigerians, is about 5.8 gigawatts. So you see that at every point, there's a step down in the amount of electricity that the grid can handle. And then obviously on the liquidity side, there's the 5 trillion naira debt that is mounting and keeps expanding every year as the subsidy on electricity continues. So that's where the electricity sector is today. In terms of developments, I think the most promising part of the sector is actually the off-grid sector. But on the on-grid side, we've seen a lot of policy changes. We've seen and heard a lot of targets being announced. But in terms of actual steps taken to make these a reality, those are still pending.
It is really worrisome. Now, the issue of also subsidy on tariff, I think, is also something that I had the back and forth. Government has successfully removed subsidy on PMS. On PMS.
You're breaking up. I can't hear.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better.
Okay. So subsidy on electricity, what do you make of that? Taking it out, totally.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Subsidy on electricity tariff.
Yes, the subsidy.
Yes.
Yes, there's still a subsidy on electricity prices. So Band A customers their tariffs are cost reflective, but from Band B to E, their tariffs range from about 70 naira to 30 naira, which is way below the market price or the cost of electricity as it should be today. As we know, over the past year, the dollar price has increased, inflation has increased, and these are factors that significantly affect the cost of electricity in Nigeria. And since then, since last year, April, we haven't seen any increase in tariffs, despite an increase in inflation and exchange rates, like I said, and also gas prices. So, of course, it means that there's still a subsidy on electricity, and we're not sure when the government intends to remove it. Initially, it was supposed to be this year, early this year, but of course, there are political implications as well as social implications of tariffs going up without a resultant increase in electricity supply for Nigerians, because it then raises the question, what are people actually paying for?
The issue of tariff, we saw a state come up recently to reduce tariffs for Band A and Band B, and there's been a back and forth with regards to that. Do you think the states under the Electricity Act have the power to do this?
So that's an interesting case because the electricity that the state is trying to set a price for is electricity that's generated, transmitted, and supplied at the national level. The state at this time doesn't have infrastructure, doesn't have a generation plant, doesn't have transmission or distribution. So in that sense, they don't have the power to set prices when it's not their own infrastructure. And that's where the issue has come up from. Because as we know now, generation companies have their own costs. The local distribution company has its own costs. And what's happening is that the state's own distribution company is getting power from the national grid through Enugu Electricity Distribution Company. So that means that essentially there's no jurisdiction to set prices for something that is not yours, that you're not generating, that you don't have infrastructure for. But it's an interesting case because I think we'll keep seeing things like this as the Electricity Act starts to take shape, where states are trying to figure out, okay, what do we actually have control over? What can we do in the short term? But I think that states need to be focused on actually getting their own infrastructure, because you cannot, like I said, you can't impose your own tariffs or prices on infrastructure that you do not develop, that you do not own, or you don't even have a concession on. It is still national infrastructure at the end of the day, and it's regulated by NERC.
That sounds good. But moving on, we've always talked about improving generation, and analysts like you have also argued that the grid might not be able to satisfy everyone. That's the national grid. Now, what options do we have? But are they quick wins? They don't look like quick wins to me, the options we have.
Yeah, so I don't think there are quick wins. There are some quick wins, like clearing debts for GenCos, especially the liquidity issues, increasing tariffs, or attracting investment to the sector so that generation companies, distribution companies, transmission companies can improve on their infrastructure. These are things that have been pending for a while. But then in terms of actually increasing capacity, there's no quick way to build infrastructure. Infrastructure costs money and it takes time. And I think that one thing that Nigerians need to realize that the time will pass regardless. It's been over 10 years since privatization, and we've still been having this conversation about, well, let's focus on the quick wins, but then we need to invest in infrastructure. If we had done this 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we would be in a better place now, but the same conversations keep happening and there's not enough action being taken. So I think at the end of the day, focusing on quick wins isn't the right approach to taking, especially when you're looking at large infrastructure projects like this. The state of Nigeria's grid is not good. Like, we can't even integrate renewables into the grid. Even forgetting renewables, we don't even know if our grid can actually serve the entire country. Like, we say we have 8.1 gigawatts, but we haven't actually tested that 8.1 gigawatts in terms of transmission capacity. So I think the focus on quick wins, we need to change that conversation and just focus on what do we actually need to do, quick wins or not, to fix Nigeria's electricity infrastructure.
I followed up with the fact that the alternatives, many would talk about solar, many would talk about what other ways can we explore here now. They are not cheap. That's also another argument on the other side. So what do we do? What do we do? Band A consumers, well, better. I'm on Band A, but I'm paying through my nose. I'm just a journalist, and I know what it takes me to pay for a month. So, but for those that cannot do that, are we going to continue to manage, or what do we do?
So, speaking of alternatives, I know that off-grid solutions are really taking off. In fact, Nigeria is importing a lot of solar components from China. So that's a metric that we use to know how much solar demand is taking off. So between January and June last year, Nigeria imported about 500 megawatts worth of solar PV from China. For this year, it's 900 megawatts. So that's a significant increase compared to last year, about 400 megawatts increase, nearly double. So you can see that a lot of Nigerians are feeling the pinch with higher tariffs. But even beyond consumers, like residential customers like yourself, there are also companies, industrial companies, that have seen the state of the grid, They're also focused on ESG. The cost of diesel and petrol have risen with the removal of subsidy and increase in FX rates. And lots of people are now turning to these alternatives. And while you're right, solar might not be cheaper in terms of upfront costs, there are lots of financing mechanisms that are coming up. So banks are offering payment plans. Lots of off-grid companies are also offering payment plans to consumers where you can pay a little over time and then you own your infrastructure, or you even just pay a tariff and they will manage the infrastructure for you. And we're seeing that these are becoming cheaper in terms of the quality of electricity that you get, because you know that you have quality assurance, but also over time, the cost of solar is cheaper than the cost of like generators, that's diesel and petrol generators. So these alternatives are actually taking off, but then it doesn't remove the need for centralized electricity infrastructure, that is the grid, because at the end of the day, there's also economies of scale with a large grid where the more electricity you have, the more homes you're supplying to, the cheaper it should be over time. And so essentially what I'm saying is that alternatives do not erase the fact that we still need to fix Nigeria's electricity infrastructure, but there are alternatives available. So if your bills are too high, you can always check some of these solar suppliers, because I know that there are lots of good ones that are offering good prices.
For me, I think energy conservation now is the way to go. We need to start living like we're abroad, where you go out, you don't need the lights, you put it off. You don't put on your ACs when you don't need it. You don't, when your freezer is freezed, you put it off. Well, that's just on a lighter note. But moving on, finally, if we continue business as usual, what do you think is the outlook for the sector? And if we really tell ourselves the truth, I'm talking about all the players in the industry, what do you think might change, say, for another long term now, let's say by the end of next year? What are those straight things we need to do?
Yes, so I think we've done a lot of talking and a lot of policy making. I think what needs to happen now is implementation. So there have been a lot of projects, a lot of plans that have come up. There's the Siemens project that came up from 2014, hasn't been implemented. Time is ticking on that, especially because prices have gone up significantly since 2014. The economy, this is even a different economy than we had in 2014 for projects like that. And as time goes on, you begin to see that all these projects they run out of time, nothing is implemented, we keep talking and keep making plans. I think that action just needs to be taken. We need to start looking for, if it's loans, for the sector, we need to find these loans. I did some research recently on Egypt, and they started their Siemens project when we did, around the same time, after, but it took them like 3 years to implement theirs. Granted, their grade was better, but their speed of implementation was so quick that now we haven't even started ours and they've finished and they're enjoying the wins. So basically, I think that there's just a lot of talk going on in the sector, but not enough actual implementation. And if we don't start implementing soon, in terms of even fixing the liquidity issues, fixing the infrastructure issues, the sector will just continue to remain the same way it has always been. It's been in limbo for like 10 years. It can continue for another 10 years, but unless something is actually done and plans are actually implemented as they should be. With state electricity markets, for instance, it's been about 2 years now, almost 2 years, and there's about to be an amendment, or there's talks of an amendment to the Electricity Act soon. But then even the original one, we haven't really seen much progress. There's still just a lot of planning going on. I think that we just need to, like I said, there's a lot of talking, but we just need to hit the ground running and get some things going, get some things off the ground.
Then it's a good way to live it. I must thank you so much. And let me congratulate you on your new role, research lead, Nigeria's solar marketplace. Yes, let me make that. Noelle Okwedy, thank you so much. It's always good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye. All right, we'll take another breather. When we come back, we'll be talking to investment banker and stockbroker, Mr. Tajuddin Olayinka, for market figures today. Don't go away.